The story begins with an average Japanese worker called Takeru heading home from work. He sits down to watch TV, feeling bored with his monotonous routine. Takeru turns on the TV, thinking it'll be good to get a change in pace. Watching the figure on the TV, his glasses start glowing brightly, and he gets teleported to a strange world. A strange man greets Takeru with some tea, leaving him confused. The man explains that he's the solar system manager for their world. Takeru watches as the man creates a mini planet called Madius on his finger. The manager tells Takeru that planet Madius is an inhospitable place where no civilization can thrive. He pours a drop of water on the mini planet, saying this is the effect Takeru will have after he goes to Madius. Takeru feels shocked by this sudden responsibility, so the manager reveals he'll lose his soul since he's already dead. Shocked, Takeru feels like he's got no choice, and the man explains that he'll get special powers to help him in the new world. He gives Takeru infinite mana and asks if he wants more powers, so he asks for a cute harem. The manager nods before giving Takeru an expanded search ability to find and sell rare items. After writing more powers for him, the manager tells Takeru that he'll have a bottomless bag to store all his loot and the ability to speak the Madian language. Suddenly, Takeru's body starts to vanish, and the manager thinks he might have made him Tua. Looking at Takeru's partner, the manager feels concerned, but tells him that he'll be fine. Takeru feels like he's going to get scammed hard, but his vision fades to black as he enters the new world. Soon, he wakes up leaning on a tree in a lush forest. When he looks up, Takeru sees a huge ringed planet in the sky. He gets up to search for more people. After some walking, Takeru finds a village, but feels worried because he has no money. Remembering the manager's search ability, he tries to search for items. Nothing happens, so Takeru looks like an idiot with his wand out. Thinking he messed up the spell cast, he tries to write the spell on the ground. The search spell finally activates and reveals the locations of several items around him. Takeru scans one of the items, learning it's a B-grade night grass. Excited by its rank, he picks up the grass before getting up to grab the other items. However, Takeru gets disappointed since they're all E rank. Then, he finds a pretty rock, but a scan reveals it's actually monster poop. Takeru is shocked that the poop is actually C ranked and stores away his items in the bag. He leaves to sell the items at the village and finds a yawning guard at the entrance. The guard feels surprised by his height and asks if he's a knight. However, Takeru explains that he's just a gatherer, and the guard introduces himself as Captain Marlowe of the village's defense. Marlowe walks to open the door, explaining that his village has a general store to buy Takeru's herbs. As Takeru walks in, he feels embarrassed by the curious stares around him. He walks into the general store, and the shopkeeper asks if he needs something. Takeru asks if he can sell the monster poop, and the shopkeeper feels excited by the item's quality. He tells Takeru that it'll sell for a gold coin, so he asks if it'll be enough money to stay at an inn. The shopkeeper explains that a gold coin can pay for 2 nights at an inn, which costs 500 raves per night. Takeru is shocked that the poop is worth so much and happily accepts the shopkeeper's price. The shopkeeper rubs the shiny poop on his face and asks if Takeru has more materials. Takeru gives him all the herbs, impressing the shopkeeper with his skills. The shopkeeper asks why he's selling rare items in his small store, so Takeru says that he's a traveling merchant, thinking he's got the skills. The shopkeeper asks Takeru for a serious job. He requests some rare mithril ore from an eastern mountain, and Takeru asks for a local map. The shopkeeper nods before paying Takeru 360,000 raves for all his items. Takeru's eyes pop out at all the money, but the shopkeeper warns that he'll encounter monsters in the mountain. With his money, Takeru books an inn to get some rest. An inn employee enters the room with a tub of hot water. She tells Takeru he can clean his body with the water, and he asks where he can get a full bath. She reveals that only nobility can afford full baths in their world, but Takeru can also ask a water magician for one. Excited to use his own magic, Takeru takes the bowl and gives the girl some good money to enjoy. After sending her off, Takeru tries chanting words for a water bath. The word clean creates a gush of water that deep cleans Takeru's body. Outside his room, the girl feels surprised by Takeru's euphoric noises. He feels happy that his body is clean, but feels frustrated that he can't soak in a full, cozy bath. The next day, Takeru gathers some more herbs before finding a spade symbol. Checking it out, he finds a rotten skeleton wearing some fighting gear. Takeru falls back in shock, realizing that it's the body of a fallen adventurer. He picks up an amulet containing a letter from the adventurer's sister. Takeru learns that the adventurer was searching for money to cure his father's illness, but his sister wanted him to return home. Feeling sad for the fallen soul, he makes a grave for him and offers some prayers. Afterward, he creates a magic barrier around himself and uses some fuel to start a fire. Takeru places a pot on the fire and fills it with some water and veggies to make a stew. He then adds the meat to the stew and watches the heat cook up the ingredients. ingredients. Once the stew is ready, Takaru takes a bite, finding it delicious. He praises the Ice Sky world for giving him so many flavorful spices. After eating, Takaru heads into the white forest of ancient dragons. Knowing there are dangerous monsters nearby, he creates some light with a spell. The light reveals some herbs around him, and Takaru feels disappointed that there's no ore. Feeling grateful he hasn't found any monsters, he starts picking the herbs. Takaru thinks that his awful body odor might be repelling the monsters, and starts happily dashing through the forest. He soon finds light at the end of the tunnel and follows it to get out. However, Takaru runs straight into a chasm and starts falling down the pit. He hastily chants the entire dictionary and finally finds the spell to fly. The spell's glow surrounds his body and gracefully helps Takaru settle on the ground. He sits down in relief, but notices symbols for ores all around him. Takaru takes out his hammer and gets to mining all the ore. He breaks off a piece and learns it's silver ore, but fails to find any mithril. He uses a search spell again and finds some hidden ore, but feels the ground shaking around him. He decides to get the ore and quickly leave, using a fireball spell to uncover the hidden rock. Once the spell shatters the rock, Takaru finds some tiny chunks of mithril deep inside. He feels disappointed with the small amount and ignores the shaking ground to search for more ore. He explores the rest of the cave and finds a pristine underwater lake in its depths. He rushes to scan the water and finds out that it's SS-ranked magic elemental water. Takaru feels excited by the valuable find, but learns that it's actually the water from an ancient dragon's nest. A deep voice rings out, asking for the intruder's identity, but Takaru ignores it and wonders how to collect the water. He tries drinking the water, but suddenly, the water erupts as the dragon comes out. It angrily orders Takaru to stop ignoring it, and he watches the creature in silence. The dragon notices how calm he is in its presence, and Takaru apologizes for intruding on its lair. As the dragon examines Takaru's body, he feels weird about submitting to it. The dragon feels respect for Takaru's courage and asks for his identity. Takaru introduces himself as a human, surprising the dragon with the vast amounts of mana in his body. The dragon reveals that Takaru's mana forced him to wake up, but he feels confused. The dragon tells Takaru that his mana is as powerful as its own, and Takaru finally realizes that he's talking to an ancient beast. The dragon nods and introduces himself as Valdius. Takaru asks if he can call him Val, and Valdius agrees. He asks Takaru for a favor, saying that he could awaken his children with his incredible power. Takaru feels surprised, so Val explains that the magic element has stagnated around his lair. He offers to pay Takaru for his services and summons a big cluster of pure mithril ore as a reward. Takaru asks Val where the eggs are, and the dragon summons a big black egg from the water. He sends it to Takaru, who holds the egg to his ear and hears the faint heartbeat of the baby dragon inside. Takaru wonders how to awaken the baby inside, and Val tells him to pour his mana inside the egg. Val explains that it's just like creating the light spell, so Takaru decides to heat up the egg. After heating up, the egg releases a powerful aura and starts sucking all of Takaru's mana inside it. Val starts laughing like a villain, and Takaru realizes he got duped by the shady old beast. Losing his strength, Takaru's vision fades, and he feels himself sinking into water. Takaru hears a strange voice in the dream, scolding him for being so careless. A man appears in front of Takaru and points out that he should have run away from the dragon. The man tells Takaru that he's been toying with planet Madius for millennia, but Takaru has already shaken the whole world on his second day there. The man thinks that Takaru's carelessness will weaken the space manager's protection, before remembering that he wanted a cute partner. As Takaru's eyes start closing again, the man tells him he deserves some trouble. Before Takaru can ask for an explanation, the vision fades and he wakes up in the real world. Takaru hears a cute voice squealing in the dark cave, and Val asks if he's fine. Takaru thinks Val is pranking him with a fake voice and uses a light spell to expose him. However, he finds a dragon hatchling squeaking at him, which jumps straight on his face. After Takaru sets the baby dragon down, Val asks him to name it. Takaru feels surprised that Val is letting him name his child. The dragon explains that his child already has a dragon name, but Takaru should give him his common name. Takaru gets up and starts racking his brain, and decides to call it B for the color black. Loving his new name, B starts licking Takaru's face to show his appreciation. Val calls his child by his full name, Black Nobi Valdius, and praises Takaru for the suitable nickname. Then, he permits B to travel the world with Takaru. Takaru feels the baby join his party and reminds Val that he should spend some time with his newborn baby. He thinks Val shouldn't trust a stranger with his baby, but Val trusts Takaru since he's stronger than him. He then casts a beam on Takaru's bag before sinking back into the water. As B continues slobbering on Takaru's face, Val says goodbye before vanishing into the depths. Takaru feels surprised by the surreal experience and seriously asks B if he he's ready for a gathering journey. B happily agrees, so he washes its stinky body to protect his nose during their upcoming adventures. After some time, Takeru exits the cave with B. Watching B happily buzz around in the forest, Takeru thinks that traveling at night isn't a good idea. Feeling hungry, he decides to camp out at the spot for the night. Getting ready to eat, he takes out some magic elemental water. Looking at the water in his bag, Takeru remembers that Vol connected his to the magic lake so that he could provide food for B. B happily drinks some water and asks for more, so Takeru gives her another cup. However, it offers this cup to Takeru, so he takes it and tries some magic water himself. After drinking the refreshing water, Takeru sets down some magic stones and casts a barrier around them. Using the precious stones so easily, he recalls how valuable they are in this world. However, since he can just create magic stones with his own mana, Takeru feels free to abuse them for minor conveniences. With another magic stone ready, Takeru heats it up to start cooking. Even B gets surprised as he watches Takeru turn the expensive stones into a kitchen stove. Knowing it's the same dish as before, Takeru makes some steak and stew, but feels excited to eat it since it tastes so good. He notices B drooling at the meat, but feels worried if the foreign food would harm it. Takeru offers a small portion for B to try, and it burns its mouth from the hot food. To help her eat, Takeru blows on the food and cools it down. Finally, B enjoys a good stew and fills its belly with the food. Watching the baby dragon lays around, Takeru wonders why it's not sad about leaving its father. In response, B just hugs Takeru, so he realizes that it feels happy living with him. Takeru is pleased with its response and checks out B's stats. Even at B's young age, he finds it at a powerful B rank with a bunch of powerful elemental abilities. Takeru gets serious about B, but thinks that it's still a kid who needs to be raised properly. Looking at the lazy baby, he seriously warns it not to try anything dangerous. Even if it's so strong, Takeru reminds B that he'll get scolded by Vol if something goes wrong, but it starts sleeping before he can even finish. Watching it sleep, Takeru wonders if the space manager gave him a reptile partner on purpose. The next day, Takeru climbs up a mountain to reach the forest again. Feeling surprised that the forest looks so peaceful during the day, Takeru thinks that he shouldn't be so worried about the Ice Sky World rules. While B starts playing, Takeru uses his search skill to find more herbs to sell. As he finds some new herbs, B comes back terrified. Takeru searches for monsters and detects several of them in the area. Thinking back to his previous experience when monsters were scared off by his smell, Takeru thinks that his visit to the cave washed the smell off of him. Wanting to get some monster loot, he gets ready to fight the monsters. Suddenly, a ferocious rock falcon roars behind Takeru, but he finds it adorable compared to the terrifying Vol. Noticing the bird's meat, Takeru decides to turn it into KFC. As the bird charges at Takeru, he creates a shield and prepares some ice needles to attack. With a single attack, Takeru turns the bird into a chicken carcass. Then he turns to look at some serpent wolves around him. As a wolf rushes towards Takeru, he uses a speed enhancement ability and jumps to avoid its attack. Then, he hardens his body with another skill and kicks down at the wolf's skull. After finishing it off, Takeru takes out 2 more wolves, but a sneaky one creeps behind him. However, he easily knocks it away before finishing off the rest of the wolves. Takeru begins collecting all the monster meat and materials, but notices even more monsters nearby. Not wanting to spend his whole day fighting, Takeru wonders how to escape, so B grabs him and tries hard to flap its wings. Takeru doesn't think B is strong enough to lift him, but it actually lifts him to his surprise. To help B fly easily, Takeru reduces his weight with a spell, and it shoots through the sky with it. As a lady opens her eyes, B takes Takeru to space, who tells her it's going too high. Surprised, the baby dragon drops Takeru to the ground. He wakes up to B licking his face and realizes that it actually took him out of the forest. Takeru is shocked by B's fast speed and thanks it for its help. However, he reminds the dragon to hold back on him next time since he can't handle all its power. Pleased by his praise, B tries to hug Takeru, but headbutts his stomach instead. Afterward, they start heading back to Tormi village. While walking back, B notices a strange branch in Takeru's hand, so he explains that it's called the Yggdrasil branch. Takeru reveals that he had this SS rank legendary item from his first day in this world, but its powers are currently inactive. B nods before blowing some smoke on the branch. Takeru is shocked to see that B's magic breath actually woke up the sleeping item. He wonders how to use the new staff, thinking it'd make him look like a magician instead of a gatherer. Suddenly, they hear a growl in the forest, and Takeru tells B to stay on alert. As Takeru wonders if it's another monster, B suddenly flies away towards the noise. Takeru chases after it, hoping the baby stays safe. He finds B circling around a tree and sees a young elf collapsed under it. Takeru wonders if she got attacked by the growling monster, but the elf's hungry stomach answers his question, saying she hasn't eaten eaten in days. The elf asks for some water. He reaches into his bag and gets some fresh water for her, which she quickly gulps down. The elf thanks Takaru for his help, but still feels hungry for food. Remembering that he has some lunch left, Takaru gives her a sandwich, and the elf greedily devours it. As the girl praises the heavenly meal, Takaru is shocked to see an elf act so unrefined. He reminds the girl that even stale bread would taste delicious to a starving person, and she says that she has regained her will to live. Wondering how she ran out of food so quickly, Takaru reminds her that the village isn't far from the forest. After she explains that she left in a hurry, Takaru scolds her for being so careless. Feeling embarrassed, the girl tries to explain, but Takaru notices her bad smell. He feels disappointed that she smells like poop instead of flowers, and the elf girl gets offended by his rude remark. After thanking him for his help, she gets up to leave and sprints through the forest. Once the elf girl leaves, Takaru gathers some more materials on his way home. Outside the forest, B notices something, and Takaru spots a carriage on the road. As the carriage gets closer, Takaru notices that a special E-rank unicorn horse is pulling it. The carriage driver, called Porun, asks him what he's doing in the forest alone, so Takaru informs him that he's heading to Tormi village. Porun is surprised that he's walking all the way there, while his wife and kids watch with curiosity. Noticing the staff in his hands, he asks Takaru if he's a magician. He quickly explains that he's just a gatherer, and Porun feels impressed by his rare job. Explaining that he's also headed to Tormi, Porun offers a ride to Takaru. He refuses, saying that he's too big to fit in the carriage, and Porun's kids laugh at Takaru's strange appearance. However, Palom insists that Takaru ride with him, so he gets on the back of the carriage. As Takaru sits in the carriage, he wonders why all the kids in this world like him so much. Porun teases him for his size, and Takaru apologizes again for taking up so much space. Porun says he doesn't mind helping out a fellow Tormi resident in need, and his family agrees, as Takaru feels surprised by such young kids going on a dangerous trip. Porun's daughter, called Yunan, offers him a gift. Accepting the kind gift, he asks why the family is trusting him so easily. Pollen's son, called Kine, tells him that if Takaru were a bad guy, their magical item would have alerted them. Takaru notices the little bell with a magic stone and thinks that he can create an item like that as well. Then he remembers to introduce himself, and Porun's wife, Eliza, introduces herself too. Suddenly, B starts struggling in Takaru's bags, and the kids notice it. They ask about the strange sound, but Takaru tries to hide it since it's a rare monster. Eliza tells him that it's not very rare for adventurers to have monster pets, so he allows them to see it. Once B comes out, the kids start fawning over it, while Porun and his wife are surprised that Takaru got a rare dragon. To hide B's true identity as an ancient dragon, Takaru tells them it's just a black dragon. They wonder if he's a dragon knight, so Takaru explains that he just hatched a dragon egg he found. While B uses Takaru's like Play-Doh, Porun is shocked that he can hatch a dragon egg on his own. Takaru asks Eliza how rare dragons are, and she explains that it's already uncommon to see a dragon knight, but real dragons are even harder to find. Thinking about dragon knights from video games, Takaru wonders if he can find one in this world. Later at night, after they stop for a break, Takaru uses his magic stones to set up a barrier. Porun feels relieved that they won't be disturbed by any monsters, and Takaru tells him that B will be on the watch for anything suspicious. As baby B flies around, the family feels safe with its power on their side. As Eliza gets ready to prepare dinner, Takaru asks if he can handle the cooking for the night. As he takes out his cooking set from his bag, the kids think that Takaru is a real magician. He explains that it's just a bottomless storage bag before beginning to cook. Once the food is done, the family feels excited to dig in. After Takaru invites them to begin, the kids start eating first and immediately fall in love with the food. Porun and Eliza also eat some food, and Eliza praises Takaru's cooking. However, Porun remains silent with his shoulders shaking, so Eliza asks him if he's okay. Suddenly, he looks up with tears and snot in his face, crying that he finally got to eat real food after all the bland dried meats during his journey. At Porun's exaggerated praise, Takaru starts laughing, but Porun insists that he used some kind of magic to enhance the food's taste. Even the kids start laughing at their dad's funny antics before finishing dinner. Once they're done, Porun takes out a guitar, and Eliza starts singing with him. With music in the background, Takaru starts playing with Porun's happy kids, sharing simply joy with the family. He remembers his lonely life on Earth. Enjoying his time with Porun's family, Takaru thinks that spending time with other people is an amazing experience, feeling glad that the Ice-Sky world has given him a new life with other people. He puts B to sleep after they finish playing, with the baby dragon snoring away. Takaru settles into his bed, looking out at the beautiful starry sky. The next morning, B and the kids are still asleep, while Takaru cleans his scissors. Curious, Eliza asks him why he's up up so early, so he explains that he's taking care of his gathering tools. She nods, praising his dedication to his job, and walks away. While holding the scissors, Takeru thinks that he originally became a gatherer because it was necessary for earning money, but now he actually enjoys the job quite a bit. Nearby, Poran informs him that they'll leave after breakfast, so Takeru requests him to drive the carriage this time. Poran accepts, so Takeru gets on and takes the reins. He enjoys riding the beautiful unicorn, while Poran notices that they're getting close to their destination. With Bee on his lap and countless treasures in his bag, Takeru feels excited to return home. After getting off the carriage, Takeru thanks Poran for giving him a ride. Poran waves it off before leaving with his wife and kids. Guarding the town's entrance, Marlo thinks that the spring season must be close since Poran is returning to town. Curious about Poran's job, Takeru learns that the merchant goes away to sell warm clothes during winter and returns home once the season is better for hunting. Remembering Poran's joyful smile while eating ordinary meat, Takeru realizes how lucky he is to gather any material with just his ability. As Marlo reminds him of Jerome's task, Takeru remembers to visit the shopkeeper. Once inside, he hands over the materials he got from the trip and secretly mixes in some magic mithril ore. Jerome takes a close look at the ores before asking Takeru how he got these legendary materials. Seeing his confusion, Jerome explains that with just a few magic mithril ores, Takeru could have more magic power than all the magic stones available in their kingdom. Finally realizing that he exposed an insane secret, Takeru acts like he just randomly found the ore lying on the ground. However, Jerome notices that even if it's a lucky encounter, it takes skill and courage to snatch such a magic item from the face of danger. Thinking of Takeru's wasted potential, Jerome tells him to visit Belkane, which is a large city with lots of guilds and information available. He thinks that if Takeru makes Tormi village famous in the city, he'll get more customers, but Takeru has no plans of becoming famous anytime soon. However, he does feel excited to visit a bigger city and explore the new world. After returning from Jerome's shop, Takeru goes back to the inn for the night. Flipping through a book, he searches for information on the guild that Jerome mentioned. Takeru learns that Belkane has an adventurers guild, where travelers from all kinds of backgrounds meet together to exchange their goods, services, and information. He notes that while they're called adventurers, not all members of the guild are fighters. After learning that adventurers can also act in supporting roles, Takeru feels a wish to see more of the Ice-Sky world. Wanting to meet more people, he decides to visit Belkane to explore his potential and to make more money. Before heading out, he prepares for the journey while staying in Tormi. As he spends his days in Tormi, Takeru attends a town festival where everyone shares food and drinks. He watches as Bee charms a group of kids who head over to greet the dragon's kind master. While enjoying the town life, Takeru spends his time gathering during the day and preparing some processed seasonings. The woman who processes his materials tells Takeru that all the villagers will miss him once he's gone. He tells her that while he's also sad to leave the kind people, he still wants to explore the bigger world. Seeing Takeru's determination, she gives up trying to convince him to stay. Then, she hands him a big bag full of lunch, thinking that he'd have nothing to eat on his long trip to Belkane. As Takeru thanks the kind lady, she tells him he can return anytime if he misses the townsfolk. However, he gets shocked as she keeps stacking more bags in his arms, giving him enough food to end world hunger. Afterward, Takeru sits in his room, holding the magic mithril that Jerome refused to buy. While he wonders what to do with the magic item, Bee gives up thinking about the complex topic and lies down. Thinking about all the villagers' kindness, Takeru decides to build them a useful gift to repay them. After finally getting an idea, he sits down at his table to experiment. With the magic mithril and lantern next to each other, Takeru focuses his mind, which creates a spark between the items. Then, he fuses them together and creates a magic lantern. The next day, as Takeru prepares to leave the village, all the villagers gather at the gate to say goodbye. After greeting them, Takeru gives the magic lantern to Marlo. He explains that the lantern has a magic spell that will create a barrier over Tormi, protecting it from any kind of threat. Marlo feels humbled by the huge gift, but Takeru thinks that it's only fair he repays the village for their kind treatment. He tells him to keep the village safe until his return, and Marlo tells him he's free to visit anytime. However, Jerome interrupts their wholesome moment and takes the lantern in his own hands. Jerome asks Takeru if he somehow created the magic item with the magic mithril, but he runs off before the shopkeeper can grill him for more information. While the villagers wave goodbye, Jerome wishes him good luck on his journey. Some days later, Takeru walks in a clear meadow with Bee. Both of them feel relaxed in the peaceful area, but they stop after encountering a giant land crab. After scanning the mysterious crab, Takeru learns that it's an omnivore dwelling on land. It turns out that people think the crab is too ugly to eat, but Takeru's scan reveals that the crab's inner shell is quite edible and delicious. This gives him the the excuse to turn the predator crab into cheap seafood, so he gets ready for a fight. Takaru casts a hardening spell to boost his defense, but B flies up and unleashes a sound attack on the crab. The attack instantly knocks the crab out, but two more appear and surround them. Cornered, Takaru notes that the crabs should be easy to fight since they can only move sideways. However, they prove him wrong by suddenly rushing forward. As the crabs raise their pincers to strike, B grabs Takaru and flies up with him, letting them smash into each other. While the crabs fall to the ground, he thanks B and goes back. Then, the first crab gets back up to attack, so Takaru uses his staff like a baseball bat and knocks it out for a home run. Once all the crabs are dead, Takaru hardens his hand to use it as a knife. He chops off all the crab legs and exposes the meat before putting it all in a giant pot. While the pot bubbles with the crab meat, he puts in some salt for a simple seasoning. Once the meat is cooked, Takaru and B grab their portions and peel away the hard shell. Both of them fall in love with the tender crab meat, and Takaru tells B they'll keep exploring for more delicious delicacies in the future. After a few weeks, Takaru finally reaches the big city of Belkane. Watching the huge border wall, Takaru feels impressed by the city's advanced architecture. Before entering, he learns that Belkane is a medium-sized city in the Belkane Kingdom, where agriculture and forestry are the primary local industries. He is also surprised to learn that Belkane has the continent's biggest adventurers guild, where people gather from all over the world, giving it the name of the City of Commerce. Then, he decides to head inside, but notices a big queue of people lined up for inspection. Once it's Takaru's turn, he uses some magic to hide his storage bag and tells B to hide inside while the guards inspect him. After entering the inspection room, Takaru hands over his bag, and the guards are surprised that he's a gatherer. They ask him if he's there to sell his items, but Takaru explains that he just wants to join the Adventurers Guild. At his response, the lead guard nods in understanding before welcoming Takaru to his city. However, before he allows Takaru to enter, the guard tells him he'll use a spell called Avils to check if he's trustworthy. He uses a magic mirror to look through Takaru's stats and approves after seeing nothing suspicious. The guard's assistant also clears Takaru's belongings, and Takaru wonders how he appears in other people's scans. He uses his own scan to check the magic mirror, but finds information on the guard himself. Takaru tries again, and this time, he learns that the guard can only see his name, age, and some other basic details that don't expose any secrets. While he is feeling relieved, the guard asks him why he has a dragon blessing. Takaru decides to tell him the truth and shows him his baby dragon. The guard nods, but asks him to mark B as his partner so people can identify it in the city. After rummaging through his bag, Takaru takes out a bracelet he got from Poron's kids and puts it on B's tail as a marker. Happy to receive a gift, B flies around them, while the guard explains that he'll have to inform the city's mayor about it. His assistant returns Takaru's bag, and the guard finally welcomes him into the city. Walking in through the dark border walls, Takaru and B get blinded when the sunlight finally trickles in. Outside, he finds himself in a bustling city, and B points him in the guild's direction. Takaru heads into the guild and finds a bunch of adventurers gathered in the large interior. A bunny girl receptionist, called Ariana, greets him at the door and prepares to welcome him to her guild. Takaru takes the registration form from her and wonders if he can write in the world's foreign language. He writes his name in Japanese, but a magic skill automatically corrects it to the world's native language. Once Takaru completes the form, Ariana takes a look at it and asks if he has fought any battles as a gatherer. He calmly tells her that he fought a bunch of chimeras, hellhounds, and giant land crabs, but Ariana asks him for some proof of fighting those monsters. He hesitates, since the monster bodies are too big, but she tells him it's fine even if the parts are big. With Ariana's approval, he reaches into his bottomless bag and pulls out an entire land crab, which breaks the table under its weight. As the terrified receptionist backs up, a beastman notices the commotion and scans Takaru with an Avils spell. Once he's finished, he asks Takaru where he got the bottomless bag from. Takaru tells him that he got it as a gift, and the beastman nods, satisfied with his answer. He tells Ariana that Takaru is safe, explaining that the Avils spell allows him to see if a person has any evil intentions. After finishing his checks, the beastman tells Takaru he can sell his meat now, but Ariana reveals that they were in the middle of his registration. The man wonders why he's lugging around the giant crab, so Takaru explains that he's going to have it for dinner. His nonchalant response shocks everyone in the guild, and the beastman ignores Takaru's weird tastes. Then, he asks if Takaru is alone, so he points to be the dragon. Noticing the baby dragon, the beastman laughs, surprised to see such a unique partner paired with a rare gatherer. Watching the scene, everyone in the guild starts talking about Takaru, excited to see his unique potential. As all the adventurers try to get close to him, Ariana drags him away to a private room so they can finish his registration in peace. Once the registration is complete, Ariana hands Takeru an adventurer's band. After she explains that he'll start from the lowest F rank, Takeru accepts the band. Meanwhile, B feels excited that both of them are wearing matching accessories. Prepared for a new adventure, the Master Dragon duo clinks their bands together, looking forward to the exciting future. After a few days in Belkame, Takeru finds the family of the dead adventurer he found in the woods. As the family mourns their beloved, Takeru tells them that the man didn't die in pain and wrote a letter containing his final words for them. Baluria's father thanks Takeru for returning his son's belongings to him, but starts coughing in pain. Noticing his weird cough, Takeru remembers that Baluria was searching for medicine for his father. Although Takeru originally just wanted to return Baluria's belongings to his family, he decides to heal the poor father himself. Afterward, he heads to the Adventurers Guild, where he hands over a bunch of rare herbs from a quest. The guild clerk feels pleased with his results, while Ariana comes sheepishly around the corner. She asks Takeru if he's willing to take on the pile of gathering requests assigned directly to him, since he's become quite popular in the city lately. However, Takeru naturally replies that he can only handle a few. After selecting a few quests, he heads to a bath to relax for a bit. The first time Takeru visited this public bath, it was filthier than a pigsty. Luckily, his clean magic helped him turn it into pure spring water, and now Takeru can enjoy a relaxing bath to his heart's content. Suddenly, a lizardman called Clay interrupts Takeru's me time. Clay gets into the bath with him, saying that his old injury is acting up. Recalling that he treated a sick man in the slums, Clay asks Takeru about his healing ability. He tries to act humble, saying that he was just copying some healers he had seen. Knowing that he didn't take any payment from the family, Clay praises his generosity, and Takeru thinks that real doctors might get angry at him for ruining their business. Clay laughs at his innocent words, leaving Takeru confused. Then, he asks Takeru why he's staying at a low adventurer's rank, and Takeru explains that he's trying to be low profile. Noting how pure he is, Clay points out that he'll actually draw even more attention by staying low-key despite being so powerful. He then gets up and leaves, telling him to learn about the unspoken rules of the city. Sometime after the bath, Takeru finishes another quest in the guild. The guild clerk asks him about raising his rank, but he refuses again, knowing that the guild just wants him to solve difficult quests. Takeru feels guilty, but he doesn't want to ruin his peace to do troublesome quests. Suddenly, an adventurer warns the guild about a goblin attack, pulling Takeru back to reality. The guild master promptly issues an order for all adventurers rank D rank and higher to get ready for battle. He also instructs the A rank adventurer, Clay, to handle the goblins. Takeru quietly tries to slip away from the scene since he's F rank, but the guild master tells him he'll have to join their party to go out. Once the guild party is ready, the guild master explains that they're headed to the Stavlov Plains. Watching all the adventurers riled up for a fight, Takeru thinks he's too soft for the passionate crowd. Thinking he's just a puny F rank, a duo of beastmen laugh at him and warn Takeru not to get in their way. Just then, the guild master approaches him, interested in his unique reputation. The guild master mentions that his strict appraiser, called Grit, has been praising Takeru all the time, so he must be someone special. Seeing Takeru so calm while speaking to him, the guild master praises him for his courage. As the beastman gets surprised by the master's high opinion of Takeru, he inwardly wishes to stop getting so much attention. Before leaving, the master tells him to protect the people he cares for in the fight. He leaves his assistant, called Miyuzeli, behind, who apologizes to Takeru for her master dragging him along. Despite their low rank, she feels excited to fight and contribute to the guild's party. However, once they go out and reach the guild's camp, Miyuzeli gets terrified of all the monsters around them and clings to Takeru in fear. Seeing her so terrified, he holds her shoulders, but Miyuzeli claims that she'll be fine. He tells her to face reality and admit she's scared. He asks Miyuzeli about her healing abilities. Takeru tells the girl that she should stay back and focus on healing the wounded instead of fighting enemies head-on. He explains that it's completely normal for people to be afraid of getting hurt, because nobody likes to fight unless they need to protect themselves. With his encouragement, Miyuzeli stops feeling scared and runs off to help the other healers in the camp. Meanwhile, Clay makes his way over to Takeru, laughing at his inspiring performance. Takeru wonders why Clay isn't fighting on the front lines, so the lizardman explains that his old wounds are still hurting. His words remind Takeru of the huge gashes in his back, and Clay wonders if he thinks he's a coward for running away and getting hurt by the enemy. However, Takeru points out that a person can get hurt in the back if they're protecting someone as well, surprising Clay. Suddenly, they notice smoke coming from the battlefield, and Clay thinks that the leader's formation got breached. He grabs his spear to protect those on the front line, but Takeru reminds him of his wound. However, Clay is determined to protect everyone no matter what happens to him and leaves to fight. After he leaves, Takeru notices Miyuzeli healing an injured injured soldier behind him. He is surprised that she got over her fear so quickly, impressed by her confidence. Remembering the guild master's words, he decides that he should get into some trouble as well and protect his precious friends. He reaches into his bag and pulls out the Yggdrasil staff and casts a barrier spell around the healer's camp. As the mouse girls gasp in shock, he tells them that he's heading out to help Clay. Meanwhile, on the frontline bridge, the guild adventurers struggle to hold back the enemy. Suddenly, Takaru arrives at the scene and takes out a goblin with a single attack. He feels guilty about hitting the creatures, but knows that he needs to fight to protect his friend. Noticing his discomfort, B decides to help out and starts casting a big spell. The adventurers get down, letting the baby dragon torch all of the goblins with a lightning attack. Once the goblins are down, everyone thank Takaru for the help. Takaru asks them how the goblins overwhelmed the guild party, so they explain that a high-ranked goblin sergeant showed up and demolished their troops. Thankfully, the beastmen were able to escape the battlefield thanks to Clay's help, but he was left alone to face the goblins on the front lines. As it starts to rain, Clay continues smacking the goblins around, but suddenly, his injury acts up, forcing him to the ground. A couple of leftover goblins take this opportunity to attack Clay, so he thinks it's finally over for him. However, the goblins get fried by B as they finally find Clay. The lizardman feels concerned that a weak gatherer like Takaru is on the battlefield, but he reminds Clay that he can't keep fighting with his back injury. Takaru tells Clay that they should retreat, but he doesn't want to let the others face the goblin army's wrath. Takaru tells him that they'll be fine with his protection, but Clay points out that the goblin sergeant will catch up to them even if they try to run away. As the goblin sergeant jumps to attack, both adventurers avoid him. Clay tells Takaru that he'll hold back the goblins for his escape, but Takaru stays and asks him if the wound on his back is important. This confuses Clay, who tells him that the wound has just been torturing him all this time. After confirming that the wound doesn't hold any good memories for Clay, Takaru decides to heal him. He reaches into his bag and pulls out some of the magic dragon water to throw on Clay's body. The poor lizardman gets confused, but Takaru takes out his staff to chant a healing spell on him. Once he decides the spell, he casts it on Clay's body, but it causes Clay to keel over in pain. As the scratches on Clay's back quickly fade, sharp spikes begin to grow, and his body transforms right before Takaru's eyes. After turning into a big black dragon, Clay asks Takaru how he was able to change his race, but he claims that he was just trying to heal his body. Feeling overwhelming power flow through his body, Clay confidently charges into the goblin horde and takes all of them out with ease. Even Takaru is shocked as Clay starts laughing like a maniac, drunk on his new power. After the fight is over, the guild master approaches Takaru and asks if he drew out Clay's full power, so he nods. The guild master asks him if he's also the same person who unleashed heavy lightning spells to torch the goblins, but Takaru remembers that it was all B's doing. While the guild master feels wary of Takaru's mysterious powers, he decides not to probe into his background and offers him a reward for all his help during the attack. Later that evening, Clay is back to normal and demands an explanation from Takaru for what he did to him earlier on the battlefield. Takaru, however, pretends he doesn't know anything. The lizardman screams at him for transforming his body without his consent, so Takaru explains that the dragon water must have caused the transformation. Clay is confused by the magic water, so Takaru reveals that he got the high-density mana water from Vol, the ancient dragon's cave, who happens to be B's father. At the mention of an ancient dragon, Clay is left stunned as he looks at B, the baby ancient pup. He asks Takaru why he wasted such precious water on him, so he says that he was just trying to accelerate his recovery during the emergency. Clay is impressed by his high-level healing skills, but Takaru thinks that he was just imitating what he knew about the body. This confuses Clay again, so Takaru explains that the back has a lot of nerves, so he visualized Clay's nervous system and helped the energy flow properly to his body. This strange information leaves the lizardman shocked, and he asks Takaru about his true identity. Being confronted directly leaves Takaru in an awkward spot, and he wonders if it's okay to explain his true origins to Clay. While Takaru thinks that it'll cause him a lot of trouble to expose his true identity, Clay starts leaving the room since he doesn't want to bother him for private information. However, he stops Clay and decides to trust him with his real background. As the lizardman stops, Takaru finally reveals that he's from another world. Clay stands there for a moment before being completely flabbergasted. Takaru takes some time to explain how he was ice-guyed into this world, and Clay can hardly believe that someone could actually reincarnate into another world. However, Clay decides to believe him after Takaru literally transforms him into a dragonute using his mysterious powers. This information surprises Takaru, so Clay reveals that he is from a race of lizardmen who were descended from the noble dragonute race. With Takaru's dragon water and healing magic, the dragonute bloodline awakened and transformed his body into a much more more powerful form. While Clay feels happy that he revived his ancestors' legacy, he feels a lot of pressure while handling the uncontrollable new strength flowing through him. Takaru thinks that he'll just get used to his power someday, but his non-serious attitude pisses Clay off. However, Takaru still thinks that getting worried won't help, and Clay tells him that he needs to start taking stuff seriously. Upset by his carelessness, he decides to punish Takaru by forcing him to do whatever he wants for the rest of the day. The next morning, he heads out in the city, noticing that everyone has gone back to their normal routine. He smiles, praising the city for its hustle, before making his way to a weapons shop. As B feels curious about what he wants to buy, the shop owner politely greets him, welcoming him to her store. He asks her if she sells gatherer scissors, but the girl shakes her head. Interested in Takaru's skills, she introduces herself as Ribble and offers to make custom scissors for his gathering tasks. She reveals that her boss, Grauthas, is a great blacksmith, but he'll take a good payment for his work. Takaru asks to see him, so she takes him inside her store. There, Takaru sees a bunch of blacksmiths hammering away on the swords, and Ribble says that the blacksmiths have inspired her to work hard as well. Then, she takes him to her boss's room, and the dwarf wonders who Takaru is. When Ribble explains that he's the famous gatherer everyone in town has been talking about lately, Grauthas becomes interested. Ribble also thinks that they can use Takaru's abilities to gather some rare Ildra ore for a special sword to use in a sword tournament. The ore's name confuses Takaru, while Grauthas refuses to send him mining in the dangerous Ruhai mine. However, Ribble keeps arguing with him and tries to force the poor dwarf into agreeing with her. Grauthas angrily refuses, reminding Ribble that the mines are full of dangerous demons at this time. At the mention of demons, Takaru gets curious, and Ribble finally loses her energy. Grauthas warns her that if she takes other people's lives so lightly, she'll never succeed as a master blacksmith. He feels happy that his apprentice is trying so hard to save his shop, but there's no way he'll make a young person like Takaru risk his life. At Grauthas's kind words, Ribble gives up on her idea, but Takaru offers to look for the ore if they agree to forge a pair of scissors for him as a reward. Seeing the blacksmith's surprise, he takes a crab's claw out of his bag. Grauthas is astonished that he was able to defeat a B-rank monster on his own. Takaru then explains that monsters are no match for him, so he can easily explore the mines. Later, Takaru heads to the mines on a carriage with B, who is excited to eat more crab meat. He tells the baby dragon they're all out of dangerous seafood, while the other passengers feel worried about the strange events happening at the mines. Once he gets off the carriage, Takaru sees a horse stable. As he thinks about how nice it would be to get his own horse, he hears a familiar voice. It turns out the elf he met in the forest is arguing with the horse dealer that the giant ball of feathers he's selling is actually a crow. The man sighs, saying that at his stables, they consider any rideable animal a horse, so the birds are fair game for them. She calms down after his explanation, and the shopkeeper tells her that she can find a pure horse near the dwarf kingdom. Takaru notices the elf heading in the same direction as him, and he gets ready to gather some materials with B. In the forest, he gathers up a bunch of moon night grass, thinking the trip was totally worth it. Suddenly, he hears a powerful rumbling sound and finds the elf girl famished near a tree once again. As the homeless elf begs for water, Takaru gives her some food and wonders why she's always ending up like a beggar. As the girl stands up to thank him, Takaru catches a whiff of her natural musk. Feeling disgusted, he quickly uses a clean spell to sanitize her stinky body. The elf is surprised, but quickly starts grinning after realizing she's clean for once. Takaru says that he simply doesn't want her to ruin his fantasy of pure, delicate elves. The girl introduces herself as Vel Brolite. Her full name is pretty hard for Takaru to remember, so he just settles for Brolite. Brolite offers to repay Takaru for the favor, but he shrugs it off and starts walking away. However, she stops him, saying that she won't let him help her for free. As she insists, B also feels happy to have another friend, leading to Takaru finally accepting her. Afterward, as Takaru resumes his gathering, B and Brolite come rushing to him with precious monster poop. He tells them that it's just a normal rock, which leaves the two shocked. As they keep returning with a bunch of goofy trash, Takaru realizes that Brolite's brain is about the size of B's tiny eyes. As it gets late, Brolite thinks about setting up a bonfire. Takaru thinks they don't need one since he has magic stones, but she explains that leaving trails of fire lets other adventurers in the area know it's safe to camp there. Soon, she returns with a huge log on her shoulder, tosses it into the air, and slices it into chunks with her daggers. As she lands back on the ground, Takaru is impressed by her brute strength and decides to check the stats of her daggers. He's shocked to learn that there are ranked artifacts. He realizes that Brolite is actually from a noble elf bloodline. A while later, he cooks a delicious meal over the firewood she brought, and an excited Brolite tries it. She instantly falls in love with the meal, complimenting Takaru's cooking. As she takes more bites, the elf girl looks like she's in heaven, and Takaru thinks she's exaggerating. Then, Brolite tries talking with her mouth full, so he reminds her to chew first before speaking. She asks him if he's heading for the mines, and Takaru nods and asks her what she's going to do. Brolite explains that she's looking for a beautiful white Pegasus for her younger sister, Ludicara. After changing the serious topic, Brolite realizes that Takaru treated her to another meal for free. As payment, he wonders if she could become his bodyguard, and she asks to clarify her job duties. He nods, saying it would be nice to learn basic survival skills from her, but Brolite wonders if that's really all he wants. Takaru nods, thinking that he's already asking her a huge favor. Brolite sighs, saying that their second meeting must be because of fate, and she accepts his offer to be his bodyguard. Unfortunately, Takaru ends up regretting his decision just 30 minutes later when she starts snoring louder than a jackhammer with B. The next morning, Takaru follows Brolite to a river bridge leading to the dwarf kingdom. As they head into the dwarf city, the first thing Takaru decides to get is food. They find a nice restaurant to dine in, where the waitress proudly serves them some juicy meat rolls. After taking a bite, Takaru praises the roll's great flavor, and Brolite thinks the food is just as good as her friend told her. Takaru gets curious about her friend, so she reveals that her friend is a lizardman. Thinking about Clay, he tells her that he's also good friends with a lizardman. Brolite then starts bragging about her friend's status, revealing he was awarded the title of Holy Dragon Knight by the Stalfa's Empire. After hearing this title, Takaru realizes she's talking about the same person, and suddenly, Clay speaks from the table next to theirs. Takaru is shocked that the lizardman is all the way out here, but Clay reminds him that he left Belkame without a single word. Takaru sheepishly claims that he informed the guild, but Clay keeps calling him out for not letting him know. Then, he asks Takaru where he's headed, so he explains that he's going to mine some ores at the Ryuhai mine. Clay is surprised that a low-ranked adventurer like him is doing such a dangerous mission, but Takaru thinks that it's all worth it if he can get some nice scissors from a master blacksmith. His low standards leave Clay speechless, and he decides to join Takaru on his mission. Surprised, Brolite asks Clay if he wants to become his bodyguard just like her, which makes him curious. After learning that Takaru took the elf girl as his bodyguard, Clay agrees to become her co-worker on their trip. As the strange misfits clap hands, Takaru thinks he's gonna regret bringing them along with him. The next day, all of them head over to the Dwarven Kingdom city. As the border guard spots Clay, he invites the group inside, who feel surprised that they're getting special treatment. Clay reveals that he knows a good friend in the kingdom, and the guard leads them deep into a basement. Once the stairs open up, everyone is surprised to see a gigantic underground city. Meanwhile, the guard tells Clay that the Dwarf King is looking for him, which shocks Takaru. Clay acts like he's not related to the dwarves at all, but the guard tells them that he became their hero after saving their race from the Thunder King, Zengam. It turns out that back in the past, the dwarves were very weak, and an evil demon used to rule them. When Clay was just passing through their kingdom, the demon got terrified of him and ran away, which led to him becoming the hero of the dwarves. Soon, the guard takes everyone into the king's palace, where Clay starts grilling the king for giving him so much attention. As Brolite notices how close Clay is to the king, Takaru introduces himself. The king tells him to just ask what he wants without any formality, so he shows him a letter of recommendation from Grauthas. As the king recognizes Grauthas, Takaru asks him for permission to explore the Ryuhai mines. The king warns him that the mines have turned into a hotspot for demons, but Takaru says that he's prepared. This surprises the king, but Clay reassures him that he'll guard Takaru properly, and Brolite will also protect him with her strength. With Clay's guarantee, the king decides to approve his request and orders his party to uncover the truth behind the demon's appearance at the mines. While Clay agrees to the king's request, Takaru feels confused that they're being sent on a quest to uncover mysteries for him. Unfortunately, he gets forced to tag along on the fetch quest, and they head down to the entrance of the mines. The Dwarven Guild's receptionist, Zambo, welcomes everyone and explains that he'll guide them through the mine's tunnels. After he opens the gate to the mines, Brolite notices that it's pitch black, so Takaru casts a light spell to illuminate the area. Then, he duplicates the map he got from Zambo, surprising everyone with his versatile skills. Excited to get the quality ore, Takaru uses his search ability next, but only sees a bunch of crude iron ore nearby. Suddenly, B alerts Takaru to a nearby monster, and he uses a detection spell to locate it. As Takaru spots a pair of glowing eyes in the dark, everyone prepares for battle. When a swarm of demon spiders crawls out, Clay stabs the first one with his spear. Then, Takaru stops the other one in its tracks with a slow-motion spell, giving Brolite the chance to rip it apart. After defeating the spider, she starts bouncing around in joy. Before they head deeper into the mines, when they finally reach a lower level, Takaru detects some Ildra ores nearby, but stops walking as he comes across a dead end. After realizing that the ore is hidden behind the walls, Takaru asks Zambo for permission to dig. In front of everyone, Takaru blows up the entire wall with a bunch of fireballs, revealing a cluster of high-quality Ildrite ore. He gets disappointed that it isn't the Ildra he wanted, but Zambo screams at him, pointing out that Ildrite is even more valuable than Ildra. After scanning the ores, Takaru finds out that they're in a ranked material, and wonders if the mana-dense environment of the mines is perfect for nurturing them. Suddenly, B warns Takaru, so he gets serious, drawing everyone's attention. Hearing some loud footsteps approach them, Zambo realizes that the demons have found them. As the demon gets closer, Takaru tells Brolite and Clay to step back and walks close to the demon. When the creature finally shows its crabby face, Takaru and B are excited to get another taste of the delicious seafood. Watching the two of them excitedly planning to eat the monster, Clay reminds Takaru and B to get serious. He tells them that this crab is a dangerous rank monster, so they can't treat it like a joke. However, Takaru still tells him to stand back, wanting to hunt his own food. As the monster charges at him, he tells B to cover him while he makes his move. Takaru uses a quick and hardened spell on his body to enhance his abilities before rushing towards the crab. Clay and Brawlite think the crab will devour him, but B uses a screeching sound wave that stuns the monster. Takaru takes this chance to jump up and smash the crab's head with his staff, but it shakes him off with its pincer. Then, Takaru quickly dodges an attack before he can become a shish kebab, and B uses ice magic to freeze one of the crab's legs. As the crab struggles to move, Takaru uses his scan spell to identify the weak points on its body. After identifying the weak spots, he summons a bunch of ice needles to pierce its hard shell. As he releases the ice needles, they launch into the crab's body and freeze the entire thing into an ice sculpture. While Takaru pays his respect to the dead crab, Clay wonders why he's fighting alone instead of with his team. Takaru apologizes to him and explains that he was just scared that they'd attack too hard and destroy their precious meat. Clay is surprised that he was planning to cook the monster from the start, but reminds Takaru that he's supposed to be his bodyguard. Takaru tells him that he was just trying to make things easier since he's more experienced in dealing with crabs, but Clay says that he shouldn't get so excited when they're in an unpredictable environment. Saying that he and Brawlite wouldn't go against Takaru's wishes, Clay asks him to rely on them for everyone's safety. Finally, Takaru admits his mistake and apologizes, so Clay pats his shoulder and tells him to collect the crab's meat. After collecting the monster meat, Takaru also picks up all of the magic ore in the area. However, he senses some more treasure in nearby areas and tells Zambo that the dwarves can mine it in the future. As the dwarf tears up and thanks Takaru for his great help, he wonders if he's finally causing the changes to the world that the space manager said he would. Then, Brawlite and Clay start heading back, so Takaru thinks he'll keep doing what he wants as long as the changes are good for the people around him. After heading back to the dwarf city, Takaru informs the king that he has defeated the monster. The king feels surprised, so Zambo confirms that they truly did defeat the fearsome demon. He asks Takaru to reveal the monster's remains, so he takes out the giant crab sculpture right in the middle of the court. As the heavy sculpture shakes the room, the king gets up and admires the monster. He congratulates Takaru for exterminating the beast for his kingdom and offers a reward, but Takaru just asks if he can take the crab's body home. His simple request surprises the king, but he allows Takaru to have it. As the group returns home, Brawlite feels happy that the king gave them 3 million raves as a reward for the quest anyway. However, he doesn't care about his new wealth, only thinking about the delicious sashimi he's going to make with the crab's meat. Clay pokes Takaru for drooling like an idiot, who thinks about making some new gathering scissors with the crab's hard shell. The next day, Brawlite receives a beautiful white horse prepared by the dwarf king. Clay also gets a repaired spear, and Brawlite gets on the horse to deliver it to her sister. Takaru asks if she's leaving, so she nods, saying that she won't ever be able to repay him for all his help. He tells her he doesn't want anything in return, while Clay reminds him that their carriage has also arrived. Soon, Brawlite flies on her new horse and leaves, and Takaru and Clay head back home on their carriage. Once he returns to the guild, Takaru notices Ariana posting new quests on the board. She greets him and asks why he's with Clay, assuming they've formed a party together. Clay explains that they're just together temporarily, but they haven't decided to part ways yet. This news excites the bunny girl, and she starts hopping with joy before leaving to report their union to the guild master. After she leaves, Takaru wonders why Clay is hanging around him. The lizardman says that even though he knows Takaru is a mysterious person with extraordinary powers, he just wants to stick around to see what he's capable of. Takaru feels awkward having to share his secrets with another person, but he trusts Clay to be a good party member. After some discussion, they decide to become a proper team and call themselves the Azure Ebony team. Later, Takaru takes some high-quality Ildrite to Growthas, who suddenly starts shaking as he holds the ore. Takaru thinks that the dwarf is disappointed and wonders why he doesn't like the higher quality. Then, he thinks that higher quality materials might be too hard to handle for Grauthas, but suddenly, both Grauthas and Ribble start crying, overjoyed to have the chance to work with their dream ore. Ribble thanks Takaru for his generous help, and Grauthas says that he has never seen so much Ildrite in over 120 years of living. Seeing the dwarves so happy, Takaru feels relieved that they like his materials. Despite knowing that the Ildrite is high quality, it would have been useless if the ore was too difficult to process for them. However, Ribble tells him that they don't have the money to buy such valuable material. In response, Takaru reminds her that she can just make the gathering scissors, which will be enough for him. Still, he tells them to focus on creating their sword for the competition first. A month later, Guild Master Wade tells Takaru that someone has written a letter to summon him. As Takaru takes the letter from him, Clay notices that it's from the noble Lusabak family, from whom the city lord of Belkane comes. Clay explains that the city lord is actually the lord of the entire Lusabak territory, which is a whole region that includes Belkane City. Seeing that the territory lord has a high status, Takaru thinks it'll be too much trouble dealing with him. He tells Wade that he'll be having a stomachache tomorrow, so he won't be able to meet the lord. However, the guild master tells him not to worry since Lord Belminant is a chill guy. Finally, Takaru decides to look at the letter and learns that Belminant invited Clay's team to his estate to give him a reward for his performance at the Stavlov Plains. While Clay is surprised that he's the reason they were invited, Takaru thinks that the city lord is just using the reward as an excuse to meet him. Clay agrees, thinking that the city lord just wants to see Bee, the baby dragon. Hearing this, Takaru instantly gets protective of Bee, but Wade reassures him that the city lord won't steal him. Clay also says that he'd just leave Belkane if the city lord turned out to be such an evil person. Finally, Takaru decides to trust the city lord enough to go see him with Clay. A little while later, they leave for the city lord's mansion on a carriage. As the carriage leaves, all the townsfolk gawk at the luxurious ride. Takaru wonders why everyone is so impressed, so Clay explains that not many people get to see a high-ranking noble like the lord. He also reveals that if a person can get the city lord's backing, they'll instantly rise in strength and status even if they're weak themselves. As Takaru nods in understanding, they soon arrive at the mansion. When Takaru looks out the carriage window, he feels shocked to see a luxurious castle bigger than anything he imagined. After they exit the carriage, a butler named Raymond welcomes them. Takaru and Clay follow him as he guides them through the house. At the entrance, lines of maids welcome the guests. As they walk further into the house, a little girl suddenly runs up to Takaru. She looks at Bee and thinks he looks kind of funny, then suddenly demands that Takaru hand the dragon over to her. As Takaru refuses, she looks stunned. The girl claims that dragons are noble creatures, so she naturally deserves to own one as a noble herself. Clay realizes that the little girl is named Tiras. Takaru immediately scans her and discovers she's the daughter of the city lord. Wondering how to deal with the stubborn kid, Takaru gets down on his knees, which surprises her. Then, he asks her why she thought she was going to get the dragon. She explains that someone named Bernard told her about Bee, and ever since then, she's wanted to have him. Takaru asks her about Bernard, so she explains that he told her to be stubborn and forceful if she wanted to take his dragon. Takaru wonders who Bernard even is, and tells Tiras that Bee is part of his family, so he can't give him away. She calls out Bee's name, and Bee politely responds to her greeting. This surprises the young girl, so Takaru explains that Bee can perfectly understand human language. Tiras feels embarrassed that she said so many rude things about Takaru and Bee, and says that she didn't expect them to be family. As she apologizes for all her hurtful words, Bee tells Tiras that he forgives her, and Takaru asks why she wanted a dragon so badly. Tiras tears up, saying that she needs a dragon for her mother. Before she can explain, Lord Belminant appears in the hall. When Takaru looks at the handsome city lord, he feels shocked that such a young guy is actually the father of a teenager. Belminant walks up to Takaru, introduces himself, and then offers a handshake. After shaking hands, Belminant takes Takaru and Clay to a private room for a chat. He apologizes for his daughter's rude behavior, but Takaru tells him he didn't mind it. Clay asks him why he invited them, so he explains that he needed their help. Clay is shocked that he needs help and wonders if it's about his wife. Belminant nods, and Clay tells Takaru that his wife, Militaria, has been bedridden due to illness for the past 6 months. Belminant explains that he heard the rumors about Takaru healing a stranger's incurable illness in the slums, so he invited him for his assistance. Takaru sighs, knowing it's his fault the rumors spread, and Belminant begs him to for his help. Thinking about his healing powers, Takaru remembers that he literally transformed Clay's entire body, so he feels afraid that he'd hurt the madam with the wrong dosage. Belminant then tells Takaru that Tiras wanted a baby dragon because of her mother. This confuses Takaru, so Belminant explains that Tiras will soon be leaving to attend school in the royal capital, and she wanted a cute pet to keep her mother company while she's gone. Clay gets emotional over the little girl's kindness, face, then starts glaring at Takeru, making him realize he has no choice but to help them. Takeru agrees to help, but still feels afraid that he'd get into trouble if he accidentally hurt a nobleman's wife. Finally, he asks Belmonent to see his wife, and he happily takes them to her room. After announcing their arrival, he opens the door and leads them inside. The room is dark, and Takeru immediately notices how poor the ventilation is. When Mulatiria asks her husband why he's come, Takeru is shocked to see how sickly she looks. Before starting his diagnosis, he asks Belmonent if he can light up the room. However, Belmonent explains that his wife can't deal with the sunlight, so they keep the room dark for her. Takeru nods and gets close to the madam and uses his scan to check her status. Belmonent asks if her illnesses are curable, and Takeru tells him he can manage the lady's joint pains and other symptoms. However, he feels confused by her illness of iver poisoning, since he has never heard of such a disease before. Seeing Takeru lost in thought, Clay wonders if something is wrong. Takeru tells Belmonent that he needs his full trust before beginning the treatment. Mulatiria then says she just wants to regain enough strength to hold her daughter again, even if she can't make a full recovery. Hearing his wife's heartbreaking words, Belmonent begs Takeru to help her, and Takeru nods, preparing to begin the procedure. Clay wonders if Takeru will use the spell he used to heal his wounds, but he explains that if he used that spell, it would drain too much of Mulatiria's mana, so he can't use it in her condition. Then, he thinks about fixing the room's dark atmosphere, and wonders how to do it without irritating the madam's eyes. He decides to cast a gentle heal spell on her eyes, and asks her to open them. Mulatiria nods and slowly opens her eyes, surprised that her vision has cleared up so much. Takeru brings up his staff to clean the room's negative aura. As he casts the clean spell, a strong wind blows through the entire room, surprising everyone. Once the wind settles and the room is purified, Mulatiria realizes that her eyes can now easily handle the bright sunlight. Concerned for his wife, Belmonent asks her if she's okay. She nods, shedding tears of joy as she shares her happiness with her husband. Clay congratulates Takeru for a job well done, but he doesn't seem too happy about it. While remaining silent, Takeru looks back at Belmonent's servants standing in the room. Then, he quietly tells Clay that he'll explain the situation in private. Later, in a separate room, Takeru tells Belmonent that his wife was poisoned using iver. Takeru thinks that her poisoning was caused gradually by small amounts of the poison being used in her food. Belmonent wonders why anyone would do such a thing to her, but then realizes it was a malicious plan made to deliberately kill her. Then, Takeru explains that he's not too familiar with iver, so he can't cure the substance's poison. When he asks Belmonent to buy the iver antidote himself, he reveals that there is actually no antidote for this substance. Belmonent explains that the iver toxin is a forbidden poison that was lost to time, so nobody even knows what ingredients were used in it, much less what the antidote is. Takeru thinks that they can cure the poison by creating some iver themselves, but Clay reminds him it's not going to be easy recreating a legendary poison. Suddenly, Belmonent remembers a way they can search for some clues. He takes out some old books written by his ancestors, hoping one of them contains the recipe for the poison. However, since the books are written in an ancient language, Belmonent can't actually read them. Takeru nods and takes the books, and thanks to his special language skill, he's able to read the titles. However, he still can't read all the books in a short while because he's not a robot, so instead, he decides to skim through all of them to find anything related to poison. He uses his search skill and finds iver mentioned in one of the books. After opening the book, Takeru tells Belmonent that it contains a description of the iver flower. However, he thinks the flower's description is hard to decipher because it seems to be written by a child. Everyone starts feeling awkward, but Takeru reads it out anyway. It turns out that one day, a girl was exploring the land to find herbs when she found a big lake. As she rested on a horse-shaped rock near the lake, the girl found gold-colored iver flowers growing there. As Takeru keeps yapping about the girl's diary, Clay shuts his mouth and tells Belmonent that he actually recognizes this place. Belmonent feels shocked, so Clay shows him a point on the map where he saw a similar horse rock near a village. He reveals that the village is called Asheth, and Belmonent notes that it's located quite far away from his territory. He explains it'll take them around 5 days just to reach the village, so Takeru suggests leaving as soon as possible to get the madam's treatment. As they all leave the mansion, one of Belmonent's servants watches them through the window. Before leaving the mansion, Takeru places some magic stones outside. Clay wonders why he's doing this, so he explains it's a security measure against anyone who might try harming Mulatiria in their absence. As Belmonent realizes how careless he was being, Tiris comes running up to them, feeling guilty for bullying the person who is treating her mother. She quickly apologizes for being so rude to Takeru when they first met. He feels surprised by the girl's mature behavior and admits that her actions hurt him. However, he praises her ability to recognize her mistake, which leaves her confused. Takaru explains that if a person can admit their mistake, it means they value the thoughts and feelings of others. In his eyes, Tiris will have great relationships if she continues being so mature in her interactions. As the girl tears up from his heartwarming encouragement, Takaru forgives her and reminds her to be careful about her behavior. She nods, but then he warns her that after he leaves the house, Belmonent's butlers might try to trick her. So he warns her to always discuss these matters with her father. Then Takaru leaves the area with Clay. As they gallop on their horses, he uses a quick and light spell to increase their movement speed. Clay feels excited by the powerful feeling, but his horse suddenly turns into a roller coaster. Takaru finally realizes he put a bit too much energy into his spell, but it's too late since his own horse also dashes away at the speed of light. After a lot of galloping, they finally reach the village. Takaru wonders how this desolate area could sustain a village's population, so Clay explains that it was a thriving paradise in the past. As they move through the barren land, Takaru wonders if the lake has also dried up. Clay doesn't think so, since such a large body of water can't just evaporate so easily. Takaru nods, and after a bit more traveling, they finally arrive at the lake. After getting close, Takaru uses his scan spell and finds something interesting. He tells Clay that the drought might have been caused on purpose by someone. Suddenly, some villagers appear and are shocked when they see them. Noticing their fear, Takaru politely introduces himself and Clay, explaining that they're only on a quest to obtain a rare material. When the villagers hear they're adventurers, they become suspicious, so Clay shows them his adventurer's bracelet. Realizing they're a powerful ranked party, the villagers surrender and one of them collapses from exhaustion. Takaru quickly catches the boy and notices they're starving, so he asks them to explain what is happening in this land. After taking them to the village chief explains that their lake suddenly changed color 10 months ago. After that, the lake's fish also died, and the well water became unusable for them. However, a mysterious merchant named Ngash saved their village on the condition that they give him their rare golden flowers in exchange for 60 barrels of water. Although he gave them a good amount of water for every flower, it wasn't enough to cultivate their fields, so the villagers slowly ran out of food. After the chief finishes explaining their situation, Clay points out that Ngash most likely obtained the ivory flowers from them. Takaru nods, but thinks that Ngash might be an evil person. The villagers refuse to believe it since the merchant showed them kindness, but Takaru reminds them that he only started helping after their water was suddenly poisoned. Then, Takaru reveals that he discovered the lake was intentionally poisoned. He also tells the villagers that Ngash had been buying powerful poison directly from them, which leaves everyone completely shocked. Since the villagers never knew their beautiful flowers were poisonous, they feel betrayed that Ngash took advantage of them. Thinking about how these innocent villagers have been starving, Takaru swears to punish the evil merchant responsible. Then, he tells B to use his spirit magic. B flies up to the sky and releases a piercing scream, which summons clouds and causes a sudden downpour. As the villagers watch pure water raining on them after so long, they start basking in its refreshing sensation. After a while, Takaru tells B to stop his rain spell. He uses his magic to clean the dirty villagers and repairs their entire village. As everyone looks around in surprise, Takaru gives them one final gift by pulling out a huge feast. Overjoyed, the villagers start eating the hearty meals, while Takaru watches with a smile. Once they're done eating, the chief thanks him for his incredible help. He feels guilty since he can't pay Takaru for his work, but he tells the chief to just allow him to collect the ivory flowers. Takaru explains that he needs the flowers to make an antidote. The chief agrees without hesitation, but still feels it isn't enough to repay their help. Suddenly, the village children run over to play with Takaru, but the chief scolds them for bothering their savior. Clay tells him he doesn't need to repay their kindness anymore, since the ivory flowers are already their village's special item. The kids take Takaru to their secret base. After entering the secret house, Takaru wonders if it's a barn. Gonza nods and explains that the villagers keep their harvested fruit in this storage. Takaru wonders why they didn't just eat the fruit if they were starving, but Gonza explains that the fruit is extremely bitter. Since the fruit comes from a honey-producing plant, the villagers only harvest its nectar and throw the fruit away. After hearing this, Takaru decides to taste the strange Lides fruit. While the children watch in shock, he realizes that the fruit tastes exactly like soy sauce. Meanwhile, back in Belmonent's house, Tiris runs towards her mother's room after hearing an alarm sound. Knowing that the alarm is warning her about the person trying to harm her mother, she wonders who this person is. As she gets close to the room, she finds Bernard standing there. Bernard notices her and tries to get close, but Tiris backs away in fear. She accuses him of trying to poison his mother, but he calmly denies it. Tiris tells him that Takaru's alarm can only ring if a person with evil intentions approaches her mother. This makes Bernard narrow his eyes, and he tells Tiris she shouldn't put her trust in a strange adventurer. She remains stubborn, saying she totally trusts a kind person like Takaru. Bernard Bernard still tries to convince her of his own loyalty, so Tyrus feels pressured by him. Suddenly, Belmonte comes running toward his daughter, and she quickly goes to his side. She tells her father they need to discuss something urgently, so he takes her and Bernard to a private room. There, Belmonte admits that he can't guarantee Takeru's trustworthiness. Tyrus is surprised that her father would say such a thing, while Bernard thinks that the master is on his side. However, Belmonte points out that no matter what, Takeru did treat his wife's symptoms, so he needs to give him a chance. Since Takeru's alarm bell detected evil intentions from Bernard, Belmonte brings a special drink to test his loyalty. He explains that the drink contains the same treatment Bernard had been giving his wife all these years, and tells him to drink it. As Bernard avoids the drink, Belmonte's voice grows cold, and he questions why he isn't drinking his own medicine. As Bernard trembles in fear, Belmonte suddenly throws the drink in his face. Bernard starts screaming about being poisoned, but Belmonte tells him that the glass just contained normal water. Since Bernard admitted that he was the one who put poison in the drink, Belmonte calls his guards to arrest him. After Bernard is taken away, the head butler gives a strange paper to Belmonte. He explains that the paper was found in Bernard's belongings, and Belmonte gets shocked by the ancient language written on it. He realizes that it's actually a complex cipher that a random criminal cannot use. With this information, Belmonte thinks that a large criminal organization might be targeting him. Back in the village, a villager notices a strange man banging on the village chief's door. He asks who he is, but is shocked when he realizes it's Ingash himself. Ingash tells him he wanted the ivory flowers as soon as possible, which is why he was knocking on the chief's door. The villager replies that the chief is currently out with some adventurers. He then tells Ingash that their village isn't giving out their poisonous flowers since anyone could misuse them. Realizing that his secret has been exposed, Ingash suddenly calls his subordinates and orders them to destroy the village. Meanwhile, the elder leads Takeru and Clay through a dark cave. After reaching the end, they discover a beautiful lake with a horse statue and golden flowers growing all around it. Takeru stares in awe, finally seeing the legendary ivory flower with his own eyes. Takeru sits down and scans the flower. The scan reveals that the ivory garden is guarded by a legendary beast, which surprises him. The village chief explains that Hofvalpnir is their village's guardian beast, who saved them from the demon that ruled their lake a long time ago. As he mentions a myth that the ivory flowers come from the tears of Hofvalpnir, Takeru wonders if it's okay to take such precious flowers. The elder nods, saying he doesn't mind giving them to him since Takeru is their village savior. After thanking the chief for his approval, he cuts a flower with his scissors. Takeru is excited to make the antidote and test the soy fruit he found, but before he can start, a villager suddenly runs toward them in a panic. After the villager alerts them about the attack, Takeru and Clay rush back to the village with the elder. When they arrive, they find all the buildings burning and ruined beyond repair. Takeru quickly tells B to put out the flames before telling Clay to evacuate all the villagers. After their painstaking efforts, they manage to evacuate everyone and douse all the fires. Once the fires are out, a villager happily informs Takeru that nobody got seriously hurt. However, Takeru feels horrible for all their loss, and the villager tells him this happened after Ingash visited them. He reveals that after he refused to gift the poisonous ivory flowers to Ingash, the merchant went rogue and set the entire village on fire. Hearing this, Takeru clenches his fist in rage, while the elder learns that Ganza has gone missing. Remembering the boy who showed him his secret hideout, Takeru is shocked that he'd disappear like this. While the others discuss what to do, an old lady tells Takeru that the Ingash's subordinates kidnapped Ganza. She points toward the lake where the kidnappers fled, and Takeru uses his enhanced search skill to quickly locate all the villains. After he locates all the kidnappers inside an abandoned fortress, Clay and Takeru get ready to head out. Suddenly, the chief stops them, warning that it's too dangerous. Takeru reassures him that Clay is a powerful rank adventurer, so they'll definitely bring Ganza back. After some time, the two of them reach the abandoned fortress. While Takeru and Clay wait in the bushes, B flies to one of the windows. Seeing that the bandits are having a party inside, B returns and gives Takeru the intel. Hearing that the thieves are shamelessly celebrating after burning down a helpless village, Clay flies into a rage. Transformed into his dragon form, he gets ready to destroy the bandits. Luckily, Takeru calms him down by pointing out that the bandits could hurt Ganza if they recklessly charge inside. Clay realizes he's right, but keeps roaring in rage since he just wants to unleash his wrath. Then, B suggests using a concealment technique, so Takeru starts considering his options. After some brainstorming, he gets a good idea. In Fortress's entrance, some bandits are sleeping on guard duty. Suddenly, a twig randomly breaks on the ground, but they don't notice any intruders. Deeper inside the fortress, a drunk guard hobbles around before Clay knocks him out. As he collects some items from the bandits' storage, Takeru asks Clay if the concealment spell is working well. Clay nods and adds that the rest of the bandits are gathered gathered upstairs. Clay wonders why Takeru took some items, so he explains he's looking for any evidence of the bandits hiding poison. Then, they leave to search the fortress for Gonza. After a while, they get frustrated since Gonza is nowhere to be seen, and Clay thinks it's time to force the bandits to spit out the boy's location. As they make their way towards the party area, the bandits laugh and mock the village for refusing their master. One of them says they'll eventually get the Ivor flowers by using Gonza as a hostage, and the others laugh in glee. Meanwhile, Ingash remains silent with a serious expression. While his subordinates think it's time, they raise the price of Ivor poison. A bandit asks his partner how he's going to raise the price, so the man brings up Lord Belmonent's story. The bandit points out that even the mighty nobleman cannot treat his wife's Ivor poisoning, so they can spread this news around the world. Since Ivor is such a rare material, they'd be able to sell it for huge profits to any interested assassin. While the other bandits are amazed by his incredible idea, Ingash hits with a bottle. He reminds his subordinate that the plan is supposed to stay secret, and Takeru finally understands why the merchant was so interested in Ivor. Clay starts feeling restless after hearing the bandits' evil plans, so Takeru tells him to go inside and obliterate them without killing. Clay nods and breaks through the main door. While the bandits stare in terror, Clay walks in and warns them to get ready. Seeing his subordinates get absolutely manhandled by this dragon, Ingash quickly decides to escape with his pathetic life. He orders one of his goons to bring him a secret weapon, but he hesitates since the weapon isn't ready. However, Ingash tells him they've got no other options, so the bandit rushes to retrieve it. Suddenly, the invisible Takeru pretends to be a bandit and asks Ingash if they should move their hostage. Ingash tells him there's no need, since Gonza is safe in an outer building. But when he turns around, no one is standing there. Outside the fortress, Takeru wonders if he can find the outer storage Ingash was talking about. Soon, he sees a single room guarded by a guard, and B tells Takeru he'll handle it. While the guard grumbles about missing the party, B surprises him with a headbutt in the gut. After the poor guard goes through a brick wall, Takeru asks B if he's hurt. B tells him he's completely fine, so Takeru focuses on the storage building. As he calls out to Gonza, the boy answers from inside a locked room. Relieved to see him fine, Takeru breaks the lock by hardening his hand. Once the door opens, Gonza starts crying in relief and runs into Takeru's arms. After calming the boy, Takeru takes him outside, where the rest of the bandits are panicking to escape from a monster. When he sees the monster tentacles, Takeru asks a bandit what creature is inside, and the man tells him it's the lake demon. Takeru thinks Clay is strong enough to handle the demon, but he could be at a disadvantage facing an unknown opponent. As he thinks about helping Clay, he asks Gonza if he could hide somewhere. However, Takeru realizes that the boy is in no condition to be alone, so he tells him to hold on tight. Once Gonza calms down, Takeru runs inside the fortress. There, he finds Clay fighting the creature. When the smoke clears, Takeru realizes the demon is actually a giant sea anemone. He scans it to check its stats and discovers it's only a B-rank demon summoned by Ingash. Nearby, Ingash begs Takeru to save his life, but he reminds him that the entire mess is his own fault. Still, when the demon lashes out with a tentacle, he shields Ingash before it can devour him. After the tentacle sends the fat merchant flying, Takeru rushes off to help Clay. Clay praises him for saving Gonza and explains that the demon's tentacles keep respawning endlessly. To prevent it from regenerating, Takeru freezes the demon's entire body with an ice breath skill. Clay thinks the monster is defeated, but Takeru tells him to kill it before it breaks out of the ice. Takeru tells him to aim for the monster's brain between its two red eyes, so Clay doesn't waste any time and strikes the weak point with a powerful punch. However, this only enrages the demon, and it releases an army of tentacles to attack Takeru. The attack blows him out of the fortress along Gonza, but Takeru barely manages to catch the kid. He throws the kid to B and falls into the poisonous lake below. As he sinks through the poison, Takeru wonders if he's going to die after getting so many overpowered abilities. While he drowns, he realizes that his body moved on its own just to save someone else's life. Watching the gatherers sink through the poison, a mysterious boy notes how selfless he is. While he believes Takeru's kindness is changing the world for the better, he also feels there are far too many strange abnormalities in it. To help Takeru combat these problems, the man decides to help him survive. Meanwhile, Takeru feels sad that he's going to die without eating all the delicacies in the world. Suddenly, he hears a woman's voice from the void, but he keeps ignoring it while lamenting his own fate. The woman tells him that her power has recovered, but Takeru keeps stubbornly ignoring her. Finally, she gets frustrated and yanks him out of the water. So Takeru finally notices the flying horse holding him. He wonders who she is, so she introduces herself as Hofalpnir. Before he can ask anything, she shows Takeru the lake, which has turned a pure blue color. He wonders how the lake changed so drastically, and Hofalpnir tells him that he purified her lake. She explains that a long time ago, one of the magical elements in the lake's ecosystem ecosystem went out of balance, which weakened her. In order to protect her lake, she created the Ivor flowers, which had the power to absorb the lake's poison. However, this used up all of her own powers, so she turned into the famous horse statue. Unfortunately, Ingash came and ruined all her efforts. But Takaru purified the lake and restored her power by absorbing the poisonous magical element. Takaru humbly accepts the Hofaltnir's thanks before she returns him to Clay and Gonza. He tells them that this white horse saved his life, but Clay and Gonza are unable to see her. As Takaru realizes he's the only one who can see the legendary beast, she disappears in a burst of light. Afterward, he returns Gonza to the village and leaves with Clay. Outside, he creates a circle of magic stones, explaining that it'll let him use a special magic spell. Clay feels hesitant, but decides to trust Takaru's abilities. After Clay gets inside the circle, Takaru uses a gate spell, which teleports them back to Belmanent's mansion. After returning, they got the help of a doctor from the Adventurers Guild to create an Ivor antidote. Once the antidote is done, Takaru gives it to Muleteria. When she drinks the liquid, her condition improves instantly. Belmanent asks Takaru to check on her, so he scans her body with his ability. Since the scan no longer shows Ivor poisoning, Takaru reassures Belmanent that his wife has been cured. This good news brings Tiras to tears, and the entire family starts crying as they celebrate. After healing the lady, Takaru returns to the village, where everyone is busy rebuilding their homes. The chief feels sad that their village got dragged into so much destruction, so Takaru reassures him that Ingash is under the custody of the territory lord with all the evidence against him, since his village is finally safe. The elder wonders how to thank Takaru for his immense help. Takaru tells him he doesn't want a big reward, but he decides to show him something. After a little while, he cooks up a potato and pours some soy fruit sauce over it. As the chief takes a bite of the seasoned potato, he falls in love with the taste. Takaru tells him that it's made with soy sauce. Then he asks if he can buy Lidaz fruits in bulk from their village. The chief agrees to his demand, so Takaru asks if he can expand the Lidaz fruit field after making some profits. The chief wonders what he'll do with so much useless fruit, so Takaru tells him he can sell it in Belkame as a village specialty. The offer of money finally gets the chief's gears going, and Takaru soon invites the rest of the villagers to taste how good their useless fruit can be. Afterward, he says goodbye to the village and returns to Clay. Clay wonders how he's feeling after all the recent events, and Takaru admits he's tired. In fact, Takaru looks at the sun and thinks he's so tired that he's starting to hallucinate. But when Clay looks toward the spot where Takaru sees the hallucination, he realizes he can see it too. Soon, Hofaltnir materializes in front of them and declares she's a real creature. Then, she lands in front of them, so Takaru asks why she left the village. Hofaltnir tells him she got tired of being stuck in the same village, and right then, the horse transforms into a woman. She tells Takaru she wants to travel the world with him, but Clay thinks it's not a good idea. However, Hofaltnir is confident that she'll have lots of fun traveling with Takaru, and reminds him that he wanted a horse anyway. Takaru nods, but thinks it's too much to use a legendary beast like a common mount. Hofaltnir doesn't seem to mind and happily tells Takaru he can go wherever he wants with her. As Hofaltnir starts pestering him, Takaru realizes she's going to be a legendary pain in the rear end. A few days later, Takaru visits Grauthas to ask if he can forge another pair of harvesting scissors. The blacksmith proudly tells him that his newest sword won a competition thanks to Takaru's high-quality Ildrite, so he's more than ready to create the best pair of gathering scissors for him. Once Takaru finishes his discussion with Grauthas, he leaves the shop and finds Varpi waiting for him. While he thinks it's nice to have a companion on his journey, she asks if she should whip Grauthas to make him work faster. Takaru tells her he'll buy her a cotton field later, so she gives up and asks him for some food. Suddenly, Bee comes over, also interested in the food, and he starts arguing with Varpi. Just then, Grit calls to Takaru from behind, wanting to discuss something with him. After inviting Takaru to the guild, Grit explains that they're about to hold the yearly gathering competition for adventurers. Ariana invites Takaru to participate, but he tells them he doesn't want to do it since he's just a casual gatherer. However, Grit explains that Belmanent himself wants him to participate, since he is the one sponsoring the whole event. Feeling bad about refusing a friend, Takaru agrees. A few days later, outside the Adventurers Guild, the guild master explains that Belmanent has sponsored this event as a recovery gift for his wife. Then, he informs the adventurers that their goal is to find 7-colored wool from rainbow sheep, which surprises Takaru. Despite being a gatherer, Takaru doesn't know about this material, and guild master explains it's quite rare, so it might take some research to find. However, he declares that it's forbidden to ask another person for help since it would go against the spirit of the event. As the guild master delivers this information, Varpi realizes that Takaru can't ride her for the event anymore. The guild master explains that receiving help from their party is forbidden, and after going over all the rules, he makes sure everyone understands. can. Clay tells Takeru he's on his own, which stuns Bee. Luckily, Takeru thinks he can survive using his magic, so Clay asks him if he'll use teleportation magic to search for the material. However, Takeru refuses to use such a big spell since it would probably create a lot of sore losers and trouble for him later on. Soon, the guild master announces the start of the event, but Bee refuses to leave Takeru. Varpy pries him off Takeru and uses her mana to put him to sleep. As Takeru feels surprised, she tells him to play in the event without worry and leave the baby dragon to her. Then, Takeru quickly sprints off to the library, where he skims through a large book to find information on the rainbow sheep. After learning that the beasts inhabit the mountain of Takarwana, Takeru rushes to the location. When Takeru reaches the mountain, he thinks he's got a lot of work to do since the sheep live at its summit. Thinking about Bee, he feels anxious since it's the first time he's doing a quest without him. Somehow, he gets the idea that Bee would start binge eating out of stress and get fat, which leaves him amused. Meanwhile, Bee munches on a sandwich sadly, and Varpy asks why he's so worried. She reminds the baby dragon that Takeru has a strong protection barrier, but then claims she would have been useful to him as a horse. This annoys Bee since he's used to being Takeru's mount, so Varpy stands up to prove she's faster than him. Clay stops her, reminding her that everyone already knows she's the fastest. The compliment makes Varpy happy, so she calms down, but Bee is still annoyed. Then Clay praises Bee's agility too, which finally settles the baby dragon. Although Clay feels relieved that the two beasts have stopped fighting, he feels worried since he can't handle them for too long without Takeru's help. Later that night, Takeru eats a bowl of hot gyoza before going to sleep. The next morning, he reaches the mountain's peak, where he finds the rainbow sheep peacefully grazing around. Knowing that the small animals are quick to run, he wonders how to catch them. Suddenly, he gets the idea to speak sheeplish, which attracts the entire herd towards him. Now that he has the sheep's attention, Takeru asks them for some of their wool. A pink sheep comes out of the flock and jumps on Takeru's lap, eager to get sheared. Surprised by the sheep's trusting nature, Takeru easily takes out some wool from it with a comb. Then, the rest of the sheep also come closer, eager to offer him some of their own bounty. After collecting all the wool he needs, Takeru starts heading back home. On the way, he notices a majestic dragon peacefully flying around the mountain, and wonders if Bee would grow up to look just like him. Sometime later, Takeru returns home, and Bee immediately clings to him, crying as if he had just returned home from a war. Soon, the guild master announces Takeru's victory and promotes him to FB rank. Takeru wonders what's special about his rank, so the guild master explains he now has permission to get either adventuring or gathering quests all the way from F to B rank. Although Takeru seems to consider staying a gatherer, the guild master warns him not to over-deliver on the quality of his products. He explains that if Takeru keeps giving people higher quality materials than they're paying for, the rest of the market will crash. Although Takeru feels a bit shaken by this news, the guild master calms down and explains that he only wants to see him get his worth, since he and the rest of the guild are rooting for him. They don't want Takeru to get scammed for his high-quality materials with insufficient rewards. Thinking about their kind words, Takeru wonders if he should take the responsibility of accepting more quests for the guild. Watching him hesitate, Clay tells him to just decide already, and Varpy also thinks he's easily worthy of receiving a special rank like this. With both of his friends egging him on, Takeru finally accepts the FB rank ring. As he takes the ring, the guild master hopes he can help their guild in the future. Suddenly, Ariana barges in, saying that a forest worm has appeared near the main road. Since Takeru is now formally an adventurer, he heads out with Clay to handle the monster. Once they reach the main road, the party waits for the worm to show up. Soon, it crawls up in all its glory, towering over them like a skyscraper. As they get ready to fight the monster, suddenly, a familiar voice calls Takeru from the worm's head. It turns out to be Brolite, who was riding the worm as a mount. As she greets Takeru and Clay, Bee rushes to meet her. After greeting Bee, Brolite gets off the worm to approach Takeru, but he quickly sanitizes her with his clean spell to eliminate all her deadly stink. He wonders why she's riding such a huge worm, so she explains that she brought it from her homeland to give it to him as a mount. Seeing the dirty monster, Takeru cleans it up with a spell, but it gets terrified and burrows away. He tells Brolite that such a large monster is unsuitable to be a mount, so she wonders if she should get a horse for him instead. However, Varpy tells her he doesn't need one, so Takeru takes Brolite back to the city to discuss everything with her. After they return to the city, he treats Brolite to a feast and explains everything that happened after he and Clay banded together as a party. Then, as he explains everything that happened in the village and how he met Varpy, Brolite asks if she can join his party. Takeru agrees to let her join the party, so Brolite proudly shows the results of her hard work by revealing her ring. Clay is surprised that she she has a rank adventurer ring, so she proudly tells him she worked hard for it. While Clay is excited to spar with Brolite, Varpy thinks she has a pure soul, since it feels soothing to her spirit. When Varpy starts calling Brolite by her secret identity, Brolite asks her to keep it secret, and Varpy agrees. Then, Takeru asks Brolite why she needed his help, so she reveals that her sister, Ludicara, has fled from their homeland. Brolite tells him that Ludicara is her village's priestess because of her special role. The village tradition required Ludicara to marry an elf and produce strong children for them, but she ran away because she didn't want to marry a random, smelly man. However, Ludicara said she would accept the arranged marriage only if she was given a beautiful white horse as a gift. Unfortunately, by the time Brolite had finally gotten the horse for her, her sister had already left to get milk. While Takeru feels uncomfortable with the serious discussion, Brolite thinks he's the perfect person to search for her sister. She thinks he'll have an easy time finding her with his magic, but Takeru reminds her that if she brought Ludicara back to the village, she'd be forced to marry someone she doesn't like. She explains that she doesn't want. Instead, she just wants to know why her sister disappeared on her without a single word. As Takeru understands Brolite's sincere feelings, he agrees to help her. Then, he asks Clay and Varpy if they'd join as well, so both of them agree without hesitation. A little while later, Brolite starts leading them all to the elf village. Takeru asks her for some directions to the village, so she tells him that they'll find it once they stumble across a forest meeting the right conditions. Takeru wonders how she can just use any forest to go home, so she explains that she uses elven magic to manipulate space and make a gateway to her home through certain points in the world. Takeru thinks that her magic sounds similar to his own teleportation spell. Varpy offers to get everyone to the forest at lightning speed, so she transforms into her horse form, and Brolite instantly falls in love. They all enjoy a comfortable ride straight into the depths of the forest. Once they arrive, Brolite uses a summon spell to create a portal to her land, which appears as a small vortex. She tells everyone to touch the vortex and close their eyes before entering the gateway herself. After Brolite leaves, Clay and Bee walk up to the portal and step inside, but Takeru hesitates, feeling scared of it. Before he can enter, Varpy tells him to keep an eye on Brolty, saying that she has some painful secrets of her own despite looking so cheerful. After saying that, she touches the portal and goes through it, leaving Takeru alone. Finally, he gathers the courage to touch the portal, which sends him through a spatial vortex into a vast and beautiful elven land. While Takeru admires the beautiful landscapes around him, everyone gets angry at him for taking so long. He wonders why they look so beaten up in such a short while, but suddenly, arrows shoot out at them. Takeru blocks the shots with a shield, and Brolite asks him not to attack because the ones firing at them are her own villagers. Soon, some villagers from the elven settlement approach them, angry that Brolite has returned. Elsewhere in a dark cave, a small team of elf explorers come across a strange monument. One of them reads a prophecy on the monument claiming that when the elves would eventually lose their noble bloodline, an outsider would arrive and give their lands a new strength. Back on the group, Brolite tries to convince the leading elf that Takeru's group will help them search for her sister. However, as he reminds her about the rules of their land, he accuses her of bringing disgusting foreigners to their pure land. Hearing this, Varpy becomes enraged and steps forward to confront the elf, revealing her identity as a legendary beast. She yells at them for insulting her pride. As the sky darkens from her fury, Varpy transforms into her horse form and strikes the elves with powerful thunder. Although her lightning only gives the elves a new hairstyle, they still apologize for disrespecting a god like her. While Varpy is still furious at the elves, Takeru realizes they can't hear her in her horse form because her magic power is too overwhelming. The elves then ask Varpy why she's visiting them, so Takeru steps forward to explain. However, since they still don't trust humans, the elves become cautious. To ease their worries, Takeru shows them his adventurer's ring and explains that Brolite is a member of their party. Finally, the elves decide to trust him and turn around to lead them to their village. As they walk towards the elves' homeland, Varpy senses something unpleasant from the forest. After a while, they reach a big lake with a huge tree growing at its center. While everyone feels amazed, Lilkar tells them to cleanse themselves before entering the great tree. However, Clay and Takeru notice that the air around them is heavily polluted by mana. Since the air is making everyone feel uncomfortable, Takeru uses a full-power clean spell, which finally eliminates all the toxic mana. Even Takeru gets surprised by the powerful effect of his own clean, and the elves wonder what just happened. Afterward, Brolite starts leading everyone up the great tree. She explains that the tree is called Gowan, and it acts as the symbol of the elven homeland. Brolite also reveals that only high elves are allowed to guide others to the top of the tree, which leaves everyone confused, so she reveals that she's a high elf. As Brolite feels guilty for never disclosing her royal identity before this, Takeru wonders why it's such a big issue. In response, Brolite tells them that high elves aren't allowed to venture into the outside world, so she was breaking the rules of her own home by leaving. Clay adds that high elves are expected to protect the purity of their elven bloodline. Takaru then wonders if Brolite's past adventures caused any of her relatives to die, but she denies it. Since no one was harmed, he assumes everything should be fine. He reminds her that she went out for someone she loves, and tells her it's okay if she bent the rules a little. Hearing this, Brolite remembers her own family and thinks Takaru might be right. He then tells her that the rules from the past might not be suitable for the present, and Clay agrees with him. Meanwhile, Varpy straight up says that high elves are a bunch of small-minded narcissists who refuse to acknowledge the rest of the world. At that moment, Bee rushes over to comfort Brolite, and she begins to cry from everyone's support. Watching her cry, Takaru realizes it must have been hard for her to admit that she was committing a crime in the eyes of her people. Then, Brolite leads everyone deeper into the tree, where they enter a door to reach the High Elven Palace. As they enter, a woman called Amber comes out to greet them. Brolite asks her for an audience with her brother, so Amber leads them into a private room. There, Takaru and the others have some fresh elf tea while they wait for Brolite's brother. A few minutes later, Brolite's older brother enters the room and she rushes to hug him, but he dodges her hug to avoid being crushed by her strength. Takaru is shocked to see that this small elf is actually her big brother. Soon after, Brolite introduces her brother as Arjun Seal, but Takaru struggles to pronounce his full name. Seeing him struggle, Arjun tells him he can call him whatever he wants, so Takaru settles on R as a nickname. Arjun smiles and accepts it. He then walks over to Varpy and shows his respect, saying that all the elven lands are honored by her visit. After greeting Varpy, Arjun shakes Takaru's hand, and Takaru is surprised by how fragile he looks. Noticing his reaction, Arjun asks if Takaru feels uncomfortable seeing someone so short. Takaru awkwardly says he doesn't mind, and Arjun admits that despite how grand high elves may act, they're all cursed to be incredibly short. His self-deprecating humor annoys Brolite, who asks him to stop feeling bitter. However, Arjun stops her, insisting that their bloodline is doomed regardless of how she feels about it. Hearing the word curse shocks Takaru, while Brolite bursts into tears, explaining that she's doing everything she can to free their lineage from it. Arjun then urges her to settle down and turns to Takaru's group, apologizing for his younger brother's sudden outburst. Takaru tells him it's alright, but then it hits him that Arjun just called Brolite his brother. Stunned, he's left wondering what Arjun meant by that, so Brolite proudly explains that although she is a girl, she also happens to be part boy. The rest of the group stays completely quiet at this revelation, so Takaru wonders why they're so calm. Clay tells him it's not unusual for lizardmen to have double genders either, so he isn't shocked by this news. Arjun sighs, saying that Brolite also had to suffer from her share of the elves' curse. Thinking about the curse, Takaru asks Arjun why the mana around their tree feels so extremely dense. Arjun is surprised that Takaru can sense it, and explains that the mana has been growing thicker for about half a year now. Takaru then asks if he can try something to help, so Arjun leads the group outside into an open area. Once there, Takaru begins forming a magic stone using his own mana, catching Arjun completely off guard. Behind him, the elf guards warn him to keep his distance. However, Arjun stays right beside Takaru, who soon finishes forming the stone. Takaru then asks him to place his hand on it and say, "Start." Arjun agrees, but the guards immediately rush in, trying to pull him away. Even so, he manages to activate the massive stone, which rises into the air and begins glowing a vivid green. As the brilliant green stone spins and releases fresh mana, it purifies the surroundings, wiping out all the toxic mana lingering in the atmosphere. Soon enough, everyone feels their breathing grow lighter, and Takaru is pleased with the outcome. Brolite then glances at Arjun, who suddenly recalls the elven prophecy about an outsider restoring their land. This leaves Takaru confused, so Arjun brings him to the elven shrine. Once there, Takaru reads the entire prophecy after only a single glance, astonishing Arjun. Seeing the part about the elves losing their noble bloodline, Takaru begins to question what it means. Arjun believes it's referring to the curse placed on the high elves, which leads Takaru to wonder if the prophecy's outsider might actually be him. Since Arjun nods, Takaru starts to think he doesn't truly match the prophecy, because all he did was purify the magic air, not restore the land itself. Still, he does understand that the outsider has to come from a different lineage. Later, while Takaru is bathing with Clay and Brolite, he keeps reflecting on what the prophecy might be hinting at. Remembering that they still haven't even located Brolite's sister, he decides that figuring out the prophecy should be his top priority before anything else. After the bath, Brolite steps out to enjoy the fresh air, and Takaru walks up to her. When he asks about the elven curse, Brolite stays completely silent. Just then, Amber comes up behind him, saying she'll be the one to explain everything. Amber tells Takaru that the curse is a strange chronic illness that has been spreading quickly among the high elves. She adds that this sickness first started showing up in high elf children several generations ago. However, about 50 years ago, the condition suddenly grew worse for no clear reason, and ever since then, it has affected their lives far more severely than before. Amber explains that many newborn elven babies nowadays don't even survive longer than a week, leaving Takaru questioning what could possibly be causing such an illness. Unfortunately, Amber doesn't know the cause either, and she breaks into tears, remembering that her own baby didn't survive, and fearing that her entire race is doomed. While Brolite comforts Amber, Takaru wonders how to solve this mystery. Sometime afterward, he goes to meet the elven queen, Malkaria, who is immediately taken aback by the unusual color of his aura. Since Takaru has no idea what she means, Malkaria continues examining the hue of his mana closely. Before long, she notices Bee perched on his shoulder and instantly understands that Takaru is the most powerful individual in their world, personally chosen by an ancient dragon. Excited to be recognized, Bee jumps out to greet the queen. Malkaria then expresses her gratitude to Takaru for purifying their land. He accepts her thanks and asks if there had been an earthquake a few months back that might have caused the mana in the air to thicken. The queen nods, surprised that Takaru managed to pinpoint the cause. As she confirms that an earthquake was indeed responsible, Takaru begins to suspect that the thickened mana may have been triggered by the emergence of a powerful monster. Arjun then asks the queen what their next steps should be, prompting her to request Takaru's assistance with a situation. He agrees to help, but mentions that he has one more favor to ask. The next day, Takaru gathers everyone for a meeting. He then takes out a magic item that activates a soundproof barrier, making sure nothing they discuss can be overheard or leaked outside. Takaru explains that he has figured out the source of the curse on the elven bloodline. He reveals that Amber, Malkaria, and Arjun are all suffering from genetic disorders. While everyone is shocked, Takaru asks Brolite who Amber's husband is. She reveals that Amber is actually married to her twin brother, so Takaru understands what happened. He explains that the elves aren't actually cursed, but they're suffering from genetic disorders caused by inbreeding. Since the high elves are always careful to preserve their bloodline, they ended up marrying their close relatives, which caused this issue. Thinking about this, Takaru realizes that the prophecy was not referring to him as the person of another bloodline who would revive the elves. Instead, he thinks that the elves can easily restore their land by marrying outsiders with different blood and eliminating these genetic defects. When he proposes marrying elves from different countries, Brolite is shocked that the solution is so simple. Realizing there's a real chance for her race to be saved, she starts crying tears of joy. However, Clay points out that the elves might not agree to changing their centuries-old traditions just based on their suggestion. Brolite thinks Arjun and her mom would easily listen, but Takaru wonders how to convince the rest of the elves. In the end, he asks Varpi to deliver his message with a warning. Since the elves seem to respect her so much, Varpi wonders why he's so eager to help so many people. Thinking Takaru is trying to save the entire world for no real reason, he replies that he's no angel, but he simply wants to help Brolite's people because she's his friend. Finally, Varpi agrees to deliver the message and assures Brolite that she'll help save her people. She then turns to Takaru and demands a massive reward in exchange, leaving him curious about what she could possibly want. In the end, Varpi simply asks for a mountain of buttered potatoes, prompting everyone to laughs at her grand request. That was episode 10. Subscribe to not miss the next part and watch the next video on screen.